this is our presentation on disability sport. By Cam Quick, Regnum 125140.
Sam Boyd, Regnum 122309.
Harry Rance 134882.
There are many barriers to disability sport in general. One of these are societal norms, which are a set of predetermined beliefs that are affected by others that also affect our attitude. For example, disabled people can be classed as weak and feeble when this doesn't always account for all disabilities. We also have funding and sports facilities. Because of societal norms, disability sport is not seen as politically correct. This has a detrimental effect upon funding and facilities, and therefore national governing bodies always struggle to make disability sport accessible. Last one is media. Media has a strong influence upon society and contributes a great deal to our beliefs and attitudes. As media does not show much of disability sport because it's not the norm, then funding, facilities, sponsors and access to sport becomes affected.
Okay, so the next video on the next slide is David Cameron speaking about funding for Rio 2016 and the legacy.
What happens to elite sport now? And I know you've made an announcement, you've done some thinking about that in the course of these games.
What has happened since the lottery has worked? I mean, that package was absolutely right. John Major's legacy is secure. The lottery has transformed the way we fund elite sport, and we should go on doing that. So what I'm announcing today is that the £125 million of funding, that will continue every year up until the Rio 2016 Olympics.
Okay, so that was David Cameron talking about the £125 million funding that will happen every year up until Rio. 10.7 million of that is for the Paralympic athletes, and that's up from the 6.7 that was made available for London 2012. Also, the Inclusive Sport Programme, which aims participation at ages 14 and above, put £10 million of lottery funding into 44 projects. They then had another further £8 million to invest in inclusive sport and the programme Get Equipped. Get Equipped was to improve sports facilities and equipment for disabled athletes. So therefore it's increased awareness. David Cameron's put more money into disabled sport. A further £2 million was also made available by the English Foundation for Disabled Sport, and then a further 40 million for grassroots disabled sports projects. This was to increase hours that the clubs could run and the amount of people and volunteers that could participate.
So in relation back to the national curriculum, there has been no impacts on the Olympics and Paralympic Games to the national curriculum. In order to meet the demands of all the disabled students, some initiatives, as we're going to go through later on in the PowerPoint, some pay for some teachers to go on particular courses. This allows them to broaden their knowledge of individual disabilities and ways to include students within the practical environment. Also, after completing some of these courses, teachers will attain resources which they can use back within the classroom and practical environment, allowing them to raise their awareness levels of all disabled participants, and basically allowing them to run initiatives perfectly. An example on the next slide is an initiative we've chosen, which is Sainsbury's Active for Kids.
So the initiative we come across is Sainsbury's Active for Kids, and this was formed in 2005 and was in conjunction with the Paralympic bid. So the government started thinking about how they could increase and preserve participation through disability sport before the games had even begun. The initiative is free and is used by vouchers, so shoppers are given vouchers and parents and teachers give vouchers into the school, and the school sends off to get their teachers onto the courses. So whether it doesn't matter on income or social class, all teachers will be able to take the course. The main aim of the initiative is to focus upon the development of the teaching skills and how they can play a vital role in increasing and maintaining participation. David Beckham and Ellie Simmons are the main ambassadors of the project. David Beckham is known worldwide, so straight away by people seeing him on adverts, it increases awareness about disability sport. And with Ellie Simmons being a disabled ambassador, it gives disabled athletes an opportunity to have a role model and someone to look up to. On the next slide, it's a interview of Harry and a PE mentor at Hampton Academy. We wanted to get opinions and ideas of someone experienced in the field of sport about Paralympic Games and disability sport in general.
Okay, so just a quick interview on one of our modules about disability sport and how it's increased awareness and people's views. So first of all, could you just tell us about yourself in relation to disability sport?
So I'm James Cranston. I'm a St Mary's student, but I also work at Hampton Academy 4 days a week, which is a school in Hampton. Within my role as a PE mentor, I work with SEN students, mainly within theory and practical lessons. I also coach an under-11s football team in Teddington, where a lad has gotten no left hand because he had it amputated.
And first of all, can you just also highlight your views on disability sport before the Paralympics, so before London 2012?
My views are that there probably wasn't much coverage of any Paralympic sports. It probably wasn't that well out there in the media, or many people participating in disability sports, even if they were disabled or not disabled.
And how about your training before the Paralympics? Did you feel that you were confident in your ability to teach SEN and disabled?
No, probably learning difficulties, yes, but not any physical disabilities.
Moving on, do you think the media affects disability sport and people's view on it? If so, how do you think that affects?
I think the media have a massive input on disability sport coverage. For example, the Paralympic Games, they really, Channel 4 really showed a lot of Paralympic sports, which raised the awareness of Paralympic athletes and also the sports, and actually how difficult it is for those disabled people to play sport, but also their achievements in playing the sport.
And a final question, as a result of the legacy, do you feel that you've had more training to cope with SEN and physical disabilities?
Yes, yeah. Within sort of Hampton Academy, the CPD for PE, the PE department, there are a few more sort of events on disabled athlete coaching, so you can transfer that into football coaching outside of it as well.
Okay, so that was a PE mentor at Hampton Academy, and some of his views and values relate to what we found in research. So, for example, just a general outline of what norms are. Hayes states that views and norms mean people are based on generalised criteria. So someone experiences and emotions and privileges obviously then inform that, and there's nothing that is to say that it's correct or it's wrong, but in terms of disability we could say that certainly 10 years ago that people's ideas weren't necessarily correct compared to today. By having this, it means that there's confusion between groups of what the norm is. So one community might believe something and another community might believe something else. So there's no distinct common ground as such. And also, it's unsurprising that journalists struggle to establish an appropriate way of reporting complex sporting and cultural events. So, for example, the Special Olympics are games and initiatives set up for disabled sport. Journalists, their knowledge and understanding of what disabled sport is may impact their values and beliefs and therefore societal norms. This is a quick model called the theory of planned behaviour. So someone's beliefs and behavioural attitudes and subject norms come together to create intentions, and based on those intentions it acts as your behaviour. So for example, my beliefs and values affect my intentions, and therefore as a sports athlete I might then go and help out in a disabled club.
Okay, so going on to the media, some British newspapers were found to compare Paralympic athletes to able-bodied athletes to measure success. Images published of athletes hid their actual disabilities. Distinctions between the real world and selective media representation are often produced by typical television channels and tend to highlight exclusion and segregation of people with disabilities. So overall, to say what we've seen, the Paralympics need publicity in order to raise awareness and to attract sponsors. The media has raised the overall profile of watching sports throughout the use of TV, internet and social media websites. And it's basically given everyone an up-to-date level and opportunities. So, conclusion. Many barriers affect the participation of disabled athletes, some of them at the fundings, like the facilities, social norms, stereotypes, lack of training and the media. And funding is in place for further events to help change social norms.
Funding has been increased to further promote disabled sport, but the distribution of the funding appears to be unfair. There are minimal crossovers between disabled sport and their national curriculum, but training programs are provided for teachers and staff.
And finally, initiatives such as Sainsbury's Active Kids have been set up as a legacy and to help raise awareness and change beliefs. And finally, social norms continue to look down on disabilities that are changing. Finally, as our reference slide throughout our PowerPoint. Thank you very much.